What is up, everybody? I'm NoLuxGiven here with your afternoon snap. And in this video, we're going to take a look at what is probably the biggest mistake that I have ever seen in a game of Marvel Snap. But first, we're going to take a look at one more game. We're going to look at two games in this video, both of which my opponent makes a pretty big mistake that costs them the game, and both running the hella consistent list that you can see on the other side of the screen there. This first one's pretty fun as well, so wanted to kick off the video with this. I play Invisible Woman into the raft, and my opponent is able to play Cable on turn 2 because they grabbed it from Camp Lehigh, and they had turn 1 Quinjet. So really good start for my opponent as a Quinjet list to hit Cable off of Camp Lehigh, and on turn 3, they're gonna snap. And this is pretty scary, especially as a combo-centric deck like mine is. They might have my MODOK, they might have my Hela. Both of those would be disastrous for me. Now, turns out they have my Crystal. It's gonna be fine. Maybe could have retreated, but they only took my Crystal, so I think we'll be okay. Actually, the fact that they took my Crystal and then still played it is really good for me, because that basically drew the Crystal out of my deck, and then they still played the Crystal, so it still did its job. I had like a double Crystal. Just need to find Hela after I find that MODOK off of the Crystal draw there, so I'll play Jubilee into the raft, hoping to find that. Only have one turn to do it because of Snow Guard turning off both of those Limbos, and awkwardly my opponent also has Cosmo for me here to stop my Jubilee, so really what I have to do is play MODOK this turn, hope to just draw Hela next turn, and reanimate all of these cards that we are discarding this turn. And we will take a look in just a moment. Because of Crystal, my deck's really small. I only have 2 cards left in my deck, so I'm 50-50 to actually just draw Hela here, and then I'm in a really good spot. All of a sudden, my opponent plays Loki and Orca on turn 5, the Orca off the raft, and unfortunately, I draw Onslaught. However, I'm still gonna snap. My opponent doesn't know that I didn't draw Hela on this last turn, so I'm just snapping. I'm gonna try to bluff and see if we can get my opponent into retreating rather than, I assume, just ending the game this turn with their Snow Guard. And that's the big mistake that happens in this one. So maybe I threw my opponent off with this bluff snap, got into their head a little bit, but I was able to get into their head enough that they forgot to play their Snow Guard to turn off both of these Limbos. So instead, my opponent is going to play Jubilee into Agent Coulson, an Iron Lad, can't remember what that hits. Oh yeah, Double Dinosaur, that is pretty good as well. And then Mirage. So my opponent is winning every single location right now. This would have been terrible had they turned the locations off, but they didn't, and then I'm able to draw the final card in my deck. I'll play Hela, and I will take him for 8 cubes. I should mention, too, that I was a little bit shocked because I was thinking the game was going to end or my opponent was going to retreat. I thought the game was over, and then I draw Hela and am actually able to win the game. So that was definitely a little bit surprising for me, but definitely all worked out here in the end. Get Silver Surfer to get me a little bit more power onto my Magic even. That was from the Camp Lehigh, so I'm still able to fill all 3 locations, even if it's with like a 1-power Jubilee and a 2-power Silver Surfer, and that is enough to get me 31 power in all 3 locations and get me the win. And that game was sweet, but this game is the one where my opponent makes an even bigger mistake. So they are going to fill the raft thanks to a bunch of cheap cards in their Destroy deck that are even cheaper because of Elysium. Then they use Deathlock to clear up that location, so they'll have a free 6-cost card and they can put it anywhere. They'll have the flexibility to play to all 3 locations in this game. I've got Invisible Woman, Crystal, and then I just played Iron Man on turn 4. Hadn't drawn MODOK yet, but now I've got MODOK plus Hela. So I'm set. I'm doing good stuff. Could have even gone Living Tribunal Onslaught this game because of the Elysium, but I'll just take my chances that these things are going to land where I need them to. And I'm snapping. I'm feeling confident. Let's go for it. So yeah, MODOK into Invisible Woman. Pretty straightforward stuff on this game. Already drew all my big cards. The cards that I don't have are Jubilee, Magic, Iron Lad, right? Yeah, those are the only things I haven't drawn yet, so I really don't need those ones. I will just reanimate a bunch of big stuff here and see what my opponent can do. My opponent might have some pretty reasonable plays because they've got a free 6-cost card off the raft, plus Elysium making all of their cards cheaper is helping them out a little bit more than it's helping me right now, because I'm still just, I mean, it's definitely helping me. No, it's not even helping me at all. All it did for me this game was let me play Iron Man on turn 4, which I would have done anyway. So Elysium's doing nothing for me, but it allows my opponent to play Null plus Deadpool, and then it's going to let them do more fun stuff on the final turn of the game while I just slam down this Hela. And I mean, I shouldn't say just, it's still very good for me. My opponent does have the right idea, I do want to say. Against a Hela list, especially this list with Living Tribunal, ideally you want to have a bunch of power in 2 locations and then like no power in a 3rd location, and that way you play around Living Tribunal, which splits up my power as best as you possibly can. So they're going to do that with Arnim Zola throwing a huge null around. That'll be a 28 power null to both of those other 2 locations. And then they Odin their Arnim Zola, which moves Odin to both other locations, plus 8 power at both of those other locations, but then Odin is going to trigger the Carnage and the Deathlock. So now my opponent loses all of their cards, including their Odin. Wolverine is going to come back, but they're going to lose both of their Odins, both of their Nulls, and they're going to have less than 10 power in both locations, in all 3 locations, 0 power in that first location there. So we are going to easily be able to take them there. And yeah, that was an awkward moment to say the least. Now, to give my opponent some credit, they were able to come back and eventually beat me in this series, so I'm sure they're not feeling too upset about this one, but that is going to be it for me today. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'm NoLexGiven. Peace.